Marcus Chun had always been the invisible one. At 23, he stood barely 5 feet 6 inches tall, with thick glasses that seemed too large for his narrow face, and shoulders that appeared to carry the weight of constant disappointment. His black hair fell in unruly waves across his forehead, and his clothes always seemed a size too big, as if he were trying to disappear inside them. Walking through the halls of the Royal Military Academy, he moved like a shadow, head down, eyes focused on the worn stone floors that had been polished by countless boots over the centuries. The academy was a fortress of tradition, its towering walls built from gray stone that had weathered centuries of storms. Ancient banners hung from the vaulted ceilings, each one telling the story of legendary warriors who had graduated. Their voices boomed with confidence as they discussed their latest training scores, their weekend plans, or their family's military history. Many came from long lines of decorated soldiers, their surnames carrying weight and respect throughout the kingdom. They wore their uniforms with pride, every button polished, every crease sharp enough to cut paper. Marcus, on the other hand, struggled to keep his uniform neat, often earning disapproving looks from instructors who seemed to notice every wrinkle, every slightly crooked collar. During morning formation, Marcus stood in the back row, hoping to blend into the crowd of aspiring warriors. The drill instructor, Sergeant Major Williams, was a mountain of a man with scars crisscrossing his weathered face and a voice, while his classmates effortlessly scaled rope walls and completed obstacle courses with athletic grace. Marcus struggled with every pull-up, every sprint, every test of physical prowess. His breathing came in ragged gasps as he lagged behind the group during long runs through the academy's sprawling grounds. Sweat dripped from his brow as he attempted to match the pace of cadets who seemed born for this life. During combat training, Marcus found himself repeatedly on the ground, his larger opponents using their size and strength to their advantage. The padded training mats became uncomfortably familiar as he was thrown, pinned, and defeated again and again. His instructor, Captain Rodriguez, would shake his head with visible frustration. The captain was a compact man with lightning-quick reflexes and decades of combat experience, and he clearly struggled to understand how someone so physically unprepared had been accepted into the program. Lunchtime in the vast dining hall was perhaps the most isolating part of Marcus's day. The hall buzzed with conversation and laughter as groups of friends shared their meals and stories. Long wooden tables stretched across the room, each one occupied by clusters of cadets who had formed natural bonds through shared experiences and mutual respect. Marcus usually found himself sitting alone at the end of a partially empty table, mechanically eating his food while listening to fragments of conversations around him. The other cadets spoke of their weekend visits home, their families' reactions to their progress, and their plans for summer leave. Some discussed their intended specializations within the military, debating the merits of different units and divisions. Others shared stories from their hometowns, describing festivals, celebrations, and local traditions. Marcus had no such stories to share. His background was unremarkable, his family ordinary, and his reasons for joining the military remained largely unknown even to himself. Academic classes provided little relief from his struggles. While Marcus excelled in theoretical studies, understanding military history, tactics, and strategy with remarkable clarity, his classmates seemed to barely notice. Academic achievement carried little weight in an environment where physical prowess and leadership potential were valued above all else. When instructors praised his written analyses of famous battles or his detailed understanding of supply chain logistics, other cadets rolled their eyes or whispered comments about bookworms who would never see real combat. Professor Harrison taught military history in a classroom lined with maps of ancient battlefields and portraits of legendary commanders. He was one of the few instructors who seemed to appreciate Marcus's contributions to class discussions. When analyzing the tactical decisions at the Battle of Crimson Ridge, Marcus would raise his hand tentatively and offer insights that demonstrated deep understanding of terrain advantages and true positioning. His analyses were thorough and often revealed strategies that others had missed, but his soft-spoken delivery and hesitant manner meant his words carried little impact with his peers. During weapons training, Marcus showed unusual aptitude with firearms, particularly rifles. His hands, though small, were steady, and his analytical mind helped him quickly understand ballistics, wind compensation, and range estimation. However, the Academy's weapons program focused primarily on close-quarters combat and assault tactics rather than precision shooting. The shooting range sessions were brief and treated more as basic competency checks than specialized training opportunities. Instructor Davis ran the weapons program with military precision. He was a former special operations soldier with numerous commendations for valor in combat. During rifle training, he would walk behind the cadets as they fired at standard targets 50 meters away. When he reached Marcus's position, he would pause, noting the tight grouping of shots and the consistent accuracy. However, these observations never translated into praise or special attention. In an environment focused on producing infantry soldiers and officers, exceptional marksmanship was seen as a useful but not essential skill. The evening hours brought little respite from Marcus's isolation. While other cadets gathered in common areas to study together, share stories, or play games, Marcus retreated to his small dormitory room. The room was spartanly furnished with a narrow bed, a wooden desk, and a small wardrobe. A single window looked out onto the Academy's central courtyard, where he could watch other students socializing in groups he would never join. His roommate, David Martinez, was everything Marcus was not. Tall, athletic, and naturally charismatic, David came from a military family with a distinguished service record stretching back generations. David's father was a decorated colonel. His older brother served as a company commander in an elite unit, and his younger sister was already preparing for her own military career. David's side of the room was decorated with family photos showing multiple generations in uniform, commendations, and memorabilia from various military bases around the kingdom. David tried to be friendly at first, making conversation about classes, training, and life at the academy. However, their differences became apparent quickly. David's natural confidence and easy social connections meant he was rarely in the room except to sleep. He participated in intramural sports, led study groups, and seemed to know everyone in their class. Marcus appreciated David's initial attempts at friendship, but he also recognized that David's social obligations left little time for developing a deeper relationship with a struggling roommate. The Academy's social hierarchy was rigid and unforgiving. At the top were the natural leaders, cadets who excelled in all areas, and seemed destined for command positions. These were the students who led formations, organized group activities, and commanded respect from both peers and instructors. Below them were the solid performers, cadets who might not stand out individually, but contributed reliably to team efforts and maintained acceptable standards in all areas of training. Marcus occupied a different category entirely. He was the academic outlier, someone whose theoretical understanding exceeded his practical application. While instructors acknowledged his intellectual capabilities, they also expressed concern about his leadership potential and combat readiness. In whispered conversations between faculty members, his name came up as a puzzle to be solved or a problem to be addressed rather than a promising officer candidate to be developed. Fellow cadets had their own opinions about Marcus, though these were rarely expressed directly to his face. Some saw him as a curiosity, wondering how he had managed to gain admission to such a prestigious program. Others viewed him with mild pity, recognizing his efforts, but doubting his chances of successful completion. A few were openly dismissive, considering his presence a waste of resources that could have been allocated to more promising candidates. The Academy's training philosophy emphasized the development of warrior leaders, individuals capable of making life and death decisions under extreme pressure while inspiring others to follow them into dangerous situations. Every exercise, every drill, and every evaluation was designed to identify and cultivate these qualities. Physical conditioning built the stamina needed for extended combat operations. Combat training developed the reflexes and aggression necessary for close-quarters fighting. Leadership exercises tested decision-making abilities and the capacity to command respect from subordinates. Marcus struggled with nearly every aspect of this comprehensive program. His physical conditioning improved gradually, but he remained among the weakest performers in his class. His combat skills developed slowly, and he continued to lose most sparring matches despite dedicated practice. His attempts at leadership during group exercises were met with polite compliance at best and barely concealed resistance at worst. Other cadets followed his instructions when required, but showed little confidence in his abilities or respect for his authority. Weekend leave provided temporary escape from the academy's demanding environment, but it also highlighted Marcus's isolation. While other cadets made plans to visit nearby towns, meet with friends from other units, or return home to family celebrations, Marcus usually remained on campus. The academy's grounds were quieter during weekends, with only essential personnel and a few students who, like Marcus, had nowhere else to go. These quiet weekends gave Marcus time to reflect on his situation and question his decisions. He would walk through the empty training areas, sit in the deserted library, or simply lie on his narrow bed staring at the ceiling. The silence was both peaceful and oppressive, offering relief from constant evaluation while emphasizing his disconnection from the community he was trying to join. During these solitary hours, Marcus often wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. His family had been surprised by his decision to apply to the Royal Military Academy, knowing he had never shown interest in military service or demonstrated the physical attributes typically associated with successful soldiers. His parents, though supportive, had gently suggested alternative career paths that might better suit his intellectual strengths and quiet temperament. His father, a middle-aged accountant with graying hair and kind eyes, had suggested that Marcus consider following a similar path in financial services or perhaps pursuing advanced education in one of his academic interests. His mother, a primary school teacher with endless patience and a gentle nature, had proposed that he might find fulfillment in education or social services. Both parents loved their son deeply and wanted him to succeed, but they also worried about his chances in an environment that seemed so poorly suited to his natural characteristics. The decision to join the military had emerged from Marcus's own internal struggle with feelings of inadequacy and a desperate desire to prove himself worthy of respect. Throughout his teenage years, he had watched classmates excel in sports, develop social confidence, and begin relationships while he remained on the sidelines. The military seemed to offer a structured path toward personal transformation, a way to force himself into becoming the kind of person he admired but had never been. Now, months into his academy training, Marcus began to question whether transformation was really possible or if he was simply setting himself up for public failure on an even larger stage. The evidence seemed to support the latter interpretation. Despite his best efforts, he remained at the bottom of most rankings, struggled with basic requirements, and felt more isolated than ever before. The Academy's demanding schedule left little time for deep self-reflection during regular training periods. Each day began before dawn with physical conditioning, followed by academic classes, weapons training, combat instruction, leadership exercises, and evening study periods. The pace was relentless, designed to push cadets to their limits while building the discipline and mental toughness required for military service. However, during brief moments of transition between activities, Marcus found himself observing his classmates with a mixture of admiration and envy. He watched David Martinez effortlessly navigate social interactions, offering encouragement to struggling peers while maintaining his own high-performance standards. He observed Jessica Thompson, one of the few female cadets in their class, demonstrate remarkable physical strength and tactical awareness while earning genuine respect from male classmates who initially questioned her presence. These observations reinforced Marcus's sense of being fundamentally different from his peers. While others seemed to intuitively understand the social dynamics of military life, he struggled to decode unwritten rules and expectations. While they naturally adopted the aggressive confidence expected of future officers, he remained hesitant and uncertain in his interactions with both instructors and fellow students. The approaching midterm evaluations added another layer of pressure to Marcus's already stressful existence. These comprehensive assessments would determine which cadets continued in the program and which were counseled to seek alternative paths. The evaluations covered physical fitness, combat proficiency, academic performance, and leadership potential. While Marcus felt confident about the academic component, he worried about every other area of assessment. Physical fitness testing would include standard exercises like push-ups, pull-ups, and distance running, areas where Marcus consistently performed below average despite dedicated training. Combat proficiency would be evaluated through sparring matches and tactical exercises, situations where his lack of size and strength put him at significant disadvantage. Leadership assessment would involve group exercises where his authority was rarely taken seriously by peers who outperformed him in most other areas. As the evaluation period approached, Marcus increased his training efforts, spending additional hours in the gym and on the practice fields. He worked with tutors on combat techniques, studied leadership manuals, and sought advice from any instructor willing to provide guidance. However, he also recognized that dramatic improvement in a few weeks was unlikely after months of limited progress. The weight of potential failure pressed down on Marcus like a physical burden. He imagined the conversations with disappointed parents, the return to his hometown as someone who couldn't meet the military standards, and the confirmation of every doubt that had been expressed about his suitability for this path. These thoughts created a cycle of anxiety that made sleep difficult and concentration even harder. Despite his struggles, Marcus maintained his commitment to daily training and academic work. Each morning, he forced himself out of bed before the required formation time, completed extra physical conditioning, and reviewed his notes from the previous day's classes. His determination was quietly observed by a few instructors, though none offered the encouragement he desperately needed to hear. The story of Marcus Chun at the Royal Military Academy was, at this point, a familiar one of an unlikely candidate struggling to find his place in an environment designed for natural warriors. His journey seemed destined for disappointment, another cautionary tale about the importance of realistic self-assessment and appropriate career choices. However, beneath the surface of his visible struggles, qualities were developing that would soon prove far more valuable than anyone, including Marcus himself, could have imagined. The morning of the midterm evaluations arrived with an unusual chill in the air, as if nature itself was marking the significance of the day. Marcus woke before his alarm, his stomach churning with anxiety that had kept him tossing and turning throughout the night. The dormitory was still dark, but he could hear the stirring of other cadets who were equally nervous about the upcoming assessments. David Martinez was already up, quietly going through his morning routine with the calm confidence that Marcus envied. The first evaluation was physical fitness testing, held in the academy's main gymnasium. The massive space echoed with the sounds of cadets warming up, instructors checking their clipboards, and equipment being arranged for various tests. Fluorescent lights illuminated the polished wooden floors, and climbing ropes that hung from the high ceiling like symbols of the challenges ahead. Marcus found himself in line with 40 other cadets, all waiting for their turn to demonstrate their physical capabilities. Sergeant Major Williams called out names in alphabetical order, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. When Marcus's name was called, he stepped forward on shaking legs, knowing that dozens of eyes were watching his performance. The push-up test came first, and Marcus managed 32 repetitions before his arms gave out completely. The number was announced matter-of-factly, and Marcus could sense the disappointed looks from instructors who had hoped for improvement. The pull-up bar loomed overhead like a steel mountain. Marcus gripped the cold metal and pulled himself up with tremendous effort, managing only 6 complete repetitions before dropping to the ground with burning muscles. Around him, other cadets were easily completing 15, 20, or even 25 pull-ups, their faces showing the strain but not the absolute exhaustion that Marcus felt after his modest effort. The distance run was scheduled for later in the morning, but Marcus already knew it would follow the same pattern. He would finish in the bottom quartile of his class, gasping for breath and red-faced with exertion, while others completed the course with energy to spare. The pattern had been consistent throughout his time at the academy, and he saw no reason to expect different results during the formal evaluation. Academic testing took place in the afternoon, held in the academy's largest classroom. Rows of desks filled the space, each equipped with a thick examination booklet and multiple pencils. This was Marcus's strongest area, and for the first time all day, he felt a measure of confidence. The questions covered military history, tactical analysis, logistics planning, and strategic thinking. His pencil moved steadily across the pages as he drew upon months of dedicated study and his natural aptitude for analytical thinking. The tactical analysis section asked cadets to evaluate a hypothetical battlefield scenario and recommend appropriate responses to various developments. Marcus read through the complex situation carefully, noting troop positions, terrain features, supply lines, and communication capabilities. His response was detailed and methodical, considering multiple contingencies and alternative strategies that other cadets might overlook. When he finished the examination, Marcus felt genuine satisfaction for the first time in weeks. Regardless of his poor performance in physical areas, he knew his academic scores would be among the highest in the class. However, he also understood that academic excellence alone was insufficient for success in a program designed to produce combat leaders rather than military theorists. Combat proficiency testing began the next morning with individual sparring matches. The gymnasium had been reconfigured with padded mats and safety equipment, creating multiple rings where cadets could demonstrate their fighting skills. Marcus watched nervously as his classmates engaged in controlled combat, their movements sharp and aggressive. When his turn arrived, he faced off against Robert Stevens, a classmate who outweighed him by 40 pounds and had extensive martial arts training before joining the academy. The match was over quickly. Despite months of training and genuine effort, Marcus found himself on the ground within seconds, pinned by an opponent whose superior size and skill made the outcome inevitable. He accepted the defeat with as much dignity as he could manage, shaking hands with Robert and acknowledging the superior performance. However, the brief encounter reinforced every doubt about his suitability for military service. Leadership evaluation proved equally challenging. Marcus was assigned to lead a squad of 8 cadets through a tactical exercise that required them to navigate obstacles, secure objectives, and make rapid decisions under simulated combat conditions. His instructions were clear and well-reasoned, but his delivery lacked the forceful confidence that other cadets demonstrated. His squad members followed his directions without enthusiasm, clearly viewing the exercise as something to endure rather than an opportunity to learn from a respected leader. During the exercise, Marcus attempted to position his squad members according to their individual strengths while maintaining communication and coordination. His plan was tactically sound, but his hesitant manner undermined his authority. When unexpected complications arose during the scenario, he struggled to project the decisive leadership that instructors were evaluating. His squad completed the exercise successfully, but their performance reflected individual competence rather than inspired teamwork. The final component of the midterm evaluation was an individual interview with the Academy's senior leadership. Marcus found himself sitting across from Colonel Patricia Hayes, the Academy's commandant, and Major General Robert Franklin, the head of cadet development. The office was impressive, with dark wood paneling, military awards covering the walls, and large windows overlooking the academy's parade grounds. Colonel Hayes was a distinguished woman in her 50s with silver hair, pulled back in a tight bun, and intelligent gray eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded combat units in multiple deployments and earned a reputation for fairness combined with uncompromising standards. Major General Franklin was a tall, imposing man whose presence filled the room and whose deep voice carried the authority of decades in military service. The interview began with routine questions about Marcus's motivations for joining the military and his goals for future service. His answers were thoughtful, but revealed uncertainty about his long-term objectives and realistic assessment of his current capabilities. When asked about his greatest strengths, Marcus mentioned his academic performance and analytical abilities. When questioned about areas for improvement, he honestly acknowledged his physical limitations and leadership challenges. Colonel Hayes leaned forward slightly, studying Marcus with the intensity of someone trying to solve a complex puzzle. Her questions became more specific, probing his understanding of military culture, his commitment to improvement, and his willingness to accept difficult assignments. She asked about his relationships with fellow cadets and his perspective on teamwork in high-stress situations. Major General Franklin's questions focused on Marcus's mental resilience and adaptability. He presented hypothetical scenarios involving moral dilemmas, resource constraints, and leadership challenges. Marcus's responses demonstrated strong ethical foundations and logical thinking, but they also revealed his tendency toward overthinking and hesitation when rapid decisions were required. The interview concluded with an opportunity for Marcus to ask questions or make additional comments. He chose to express his genuine commitment to improvement and his willingness to accept whatever role might best serve the kingdom's military needs. His words were sincere, but both senior officers seemed to be weighing whether sincerity was sufficient to overcome obvious deficiencies in other critical areas. Results from the midterm evaluations were posted 2 days later on the Academy's main bulletin board. A crowd of cadets gathered to learn their fate, with some celebrating strong performances and others facing the reality of academic probation or dismissal from the program. Marcus approached the board with a mixture of dread and resignation, expecting to see his name among those who had failed to meet minimum standards. His academic scores were outstanding, placing him in the top 5% of his class. His physical fitness scores were predictably poor, ranking in the bottom 10%. Combat proficiency and leadership evaluations fell into the barely acceptable category, meeting minimum requirements but showing no particular promise. Overall, his composite score placed him exactly at the threshold for continuation in the program. The evaluation summary included written comments from various instructors. Professor Harrison praised Marcus's analytical capabilities and deep understanding of military theory. Captain Rodriguez noted his dedication to improvement, but questioned his physical readiness for combat operations. Sergeant Major Williams acknowledged his persistence while expressing concern about his leadership potential. Most significantly, Colonel Hayes had added a personal note indicating that Marcus would be transferred to a specialized track within the Academy program. Instead of continuing with the standard infantry officer training that most cadets followed, he would join a small group focusing on technical specialties and support operations. The note was brief and businesslike, but it represented a reprieve from almost certain dismissal. The specialized track was housed in a different section of the Academy complex, in buildings that were older and less imposing than the main training facilities. The program was designed for cadets whose talents lay outside traditional combat leadership, but who still had valuable contributions to make to the kingdom's military forces. These students would eventually serve in intelligence analysis, logistics coordination, communications, and other essential but less visible roles. Marcus's new instructors were a different breed from the combat veterans who taught the main program. Professor Sarah Mitchell, who oversaw the technical track, was a former intelligence officer with advanced degrees in mathematics and computer science. Her approach to military education emphasized problem-solving, analytical thinking, and specialized technical skills rather than physical prowess and command presence. Captain James Liu taught advanced weapons systems and had extensive experience with precision marksmanship and long-range engagement tactics. Unlike the close-quarters combat focus of the main program, his classes cover ballistics theory, optical systems, environmental factors affecting accuracy, and the psychological aspects of precision shooting. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Marcus found himself in an environment where his natural abilities were valued. The technical track class consisted of only 12 students, all of whom had been transferred from the main program for various reasons. Some, like Marcus, lacked the physical attributes for traditional combat roles. Others had exceptional technical aptitudes that were better suited for specialized applications. A few had social or personality characteristics that made them poor fits for leadership positions, but excellent candidates for individual contributor roles. Initially, Marcus felt like he had been demoted to a lesser program, a collection of cadets who couldn't succeed in the real military training. However, he gradually began to understand that the technical track served important functions within the broader military structure. Modern warfare required extensive support systems, sophisticated technology, and specialized expertise that couldn't be provided by traditional infantry officers alone. During his first week in the new program, Marcus attended a demonstration of advanced sniper capabilities. Captain Liu had arranged for the class to observe a veteran marksman engaging targets at extreme ranges using sophisticated rifle systems and optical equipment. The demonstration took place at the Academy's extended rifle range, which featured targets positioned at distances up to 800 meters across varied terrain. The marksman, Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez, was a compact woman with steady hands and intense focus who had served multiple combat deployments as a sniper with elite units. Her rifle was a precision instrument, custom-built for long-range accuracy with a powerful scope that could clearly resolve targets at distances that appeared impossible to the naked eye. Her shooting position was carefully constructed to provide maximum stability and comfort for extended observation periods. As Master Sergeant Vasquez engaged targets at progressively longer ranges, Marcus found himself fascinated by the technical complexity of precision shooting. Wind speed and direction had to be calculated and compensated for at each distance. Temperature and humidity affected bullet trajectory in subtle but measurable ways. The shooter's breathing, heartbeat, and muscle tension all influenced accuracy at extreme ranges. When invited to try the rifle system, most of Marcus's classmates struggled to even locate the distant targets through the high-powered scope. The reticle was complex with multiple reference points and measurement systems that required training to interpret correctly. However, when Marcus took his turn behind the rifle, something unexpected happened. His first shot struck within inches of the target center at 400 meters. The second shot was even closer. By his fifth shot, he was consistently hitting a target that appeared to be the size of a dinner plate from his shooting position. Master Sergeant Vasquez, who had been offering routine encouragement to other students, became noticeably more attentive to Marcus's performance. Captain Liu observed the shooting session with growing interest. After Marcus completed the exercise with remarkable accuracy, the captain approached him with questions about his previous shooting experience. Marcus honestly explained that his firearms training had been limited to the Academy's basic weapons program, with no specialized instruction in precision marksmanship. The captain asked Marcus to remain after class for additional discussion. In the empty classroom, Captain Liu explained that precision shooting was both an art and a science, requiring specific physical and mental attributes that couldn't be easily taught. Natural hand-eye coordination, visual acuity, spatial reasoning, and emotional control were all essential elements of successful long-range marksmanship. More importantly, precision shooters required a particular type of personality that thrived in solitary, high-pressure situations. Unlike infantry leaders who commanded troops in dynamic combat environments, snipers operated alone or in very small teams, often spending hours or even days in concealed positions waiting for critical shots. The work required patience, discipline, and the ability to function effectively without constant supervision or social interaction. Captain Liu suggested that Marcus might have natural aptitude for precision marksmanship that warranted further development. However, he also explained that sniper training was among the most demanding specialties in the military, with extremely high standards and dropout rates that exceeded even the main infantry program. Students who entered sniper training had to excel not only in marksmanship, but also in fieldcraft, camouflage, stalking, observation, and survival skills. The conversation planted a seed of possibility in Marcus's mind. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he had demonstrated genuine excellence in a military skill that was valued and respected. The idea of becoming a precision marksman offered a potential path toward meaningful contribution to the kingdom's defense, even if it differed dramatically from his original expectations of military service. Over the following weeks, Captain Liu provided Marcus with additional opportunities to develop his shooting skills. After regular classes, Marcus would often find himself at the rifle range, practicing with different weapon systems and learning to engage targets at progressively longer distances. His accuracy continued to improve, and his understanding of ballistics theory became increasingly sophisticated. Other students in the technical track noticed Marcus's emerging proficiency with rifles, and for the first time, he began to receive genuine respect from his peers. While he remained physically unimpressive and socially awkward, his shooting ability was undeniable and clearly valuable. Students who had previously dismissed him began asking questions about his techniques and requesting advice about their own marksmanship challenges. The transformation was gradual but significant. Marcus still struggled with traditional military expectations, but he was developing a specialized competence that set him apart from his classmates. His confidence grew slowly as he realized that he possessed natural abilities that were rare and important, even if they were different from the attributes typically celebrated in military culture. However, Marcus also understood that exceptional marksmanship alone was insufficient for success as a military sniper. The role required comprehensive skills in stealth, observation, survival, and tactical thinking that extended far beyond simple shooting accuracy. If he chose to pursue sniper training, he would face new challenges that might prove even more difficult than those he had already overcome. The possibility of finding his true calling within the military gave Marcus renewed motivation for his studies and training. Instead of simply trying to survive until graduation, he began to envision a future where his unique talents could make meaningful contributions to the kingdom's security. The transformation from struggling cadet to potential specialist was just beginning, but it represented hope for success in a career that had seemed increasingly unlikely just weeks before. Captain Liu's recommendation for Marcus to enter the Royal Guard Sniper Selection Program arrived on a crisp autumn morning when golden leaves were beginning to fall across the academy grounds. The official letter, bearing the royal seal and signed by multiple high-ranking officers, represented an opportunity that few cadets ever received. The Royal Guard was the kingdom's most elite military unit, responsible for protecting the royal family and handling the most sensitive security operations throughout the realm. The selection program was legendary for its difficulty and exclusivity. Out of hundreds of applicants each year, typically fewer than 10 were accepted for training, and of those, only half would successfully complete the rigorous course. The program tested every aspect of a candidate's capabilities, from physical endurance and mental resilience to technical proficiency and moral character. Many accomplished soldiers had failed the selection process, unable to meet the extraordinary standards required for service in the Royal Guard. Marcus read the letter 3 times, hardly believing that his name had been submitted for consideration. The program would begin in 6 weeks, allowing him time to complete his current technical track courses and prepare for the intense screening process ahead. Captain Liu had included a personal note explaining that Marcus's exceptional marksmanship, combined with his analytical mind and quiet determination, made him an ideal candidate for the specialized role of Royal Guard sniper. The prospect both thrilled and terrified Marcus. This was the opportunity he had never dared to imagine when he first arrived at the military academy as an awkward, struggling cadet. However, he also understood that the Royal Guard selection would be far more challenging than anything he had faced before. The physical demands alone would test his limits, and the psychological pressure of knowing that failure would end his military career created additional stress. Preparation for the selection program became Marcus's complete focus. Captain Liu developed a specialized training regimen that addressed both his strengths and weaknesses. The shooting component was intensive, requiring Marcus to demonstrate accuracy with multiple rifle systems under various conditions. He practiced engaging targets at extreme ranges, in poor weather, from unstable positions, and while under simulated stress. The physical conditioning program was designed to improve Marcus's endurance and functional strength without requiring him to compete directly with larger, more naturally athletic candidates. Instead of emphasizing maximum lifts or sprint speeds, the training focused on sustained performance over long periods. Marcus learned to carry heavy equipment across difficult terrain, maintain steady shooting positions for hours at a time, and function effectively on minimal sleep and nutrition. Mental preparation was equally important. Captain Liu introduced Marcus to meditation techniques and stress management strategies used by elite military units worldwide. The ability to remain calm and focused under extreme pressure was essential for snipers, who often operated in life-or-death situations where a single mistake could have catastrophic consequences. During this preparation period, Marcus also studied the history and traditions of the Royal Guard. The unit had been established over 2 centuries ago, during a period of political instability when multiple assassination attempts threatened the kingdom's leadership. Since then, the Royal Guard had evolved into a multifaceted organization responsible for personal protection, counterterrorism, intelligence gathering, and special operations. The Royal Guard snipers held a particularly revered position within a unit. They were called upon for the most sensitive missions, where precision and discretion were paramount. Their work often involved protecting dignitaries from concealed positions, neutralizing threats at extreme ranges, or gathering intelligence through long-range observation. The role required not only exceptional marksmanship, but also the ability to work independently for extended periods while maintaining absolute reliability. As the selection date approached, Marcus received unexpected support from some of his former classmates in the main program. David Martinez, his roommate, had heard about the opportunity and offered encouragement along with practical advice about surviving intensive military training. Other cadets who had previously dismissed Marcus began to view him with new respect, recognizing that his path toward military service was different, but potentially more challenging than their own. Professor Harrison provided Marcus with additional academic preparation, focusing on subjects that would be relevant to intelligence work and threat assessment. The professor's confidence in Marcus's analytical abilities provided emotional support during moments of self-doubt. Even Sergeant Major Williams, who had been openly skeptical about Marcus's military potential, acknowledged that the specialized role might suit his unique combination of strengths and limitations. The Royal Guard selection program took place at a remote training facility deep in the kingdom's mountainous northern region. The location was chosen for its challenging terrain, variable weather conditions, and complete isolation from civilian populations. Candidates would face 2 weeks of continuous evaluation, with eliminations occurring throughout the process as individuals failed to meet increasingly stringent requirements. Marcus arrived at the facility on a gray morning when low clouds obscured the surrounding peaks, and a cold wind carried the promise of early winter weather. 23 other candidates had been selected for the program, representing the finest young soldiers from throughout the kingdom's military forces. Most were older than Marcus, with several years of operational experience in various units. Many bore the confident bearing of proven warriors who had already succeeded in demanding military environments. The facility's commanding officer was Colonel Andreas Petrov, a legendary figure within the Royal Guard who had served for over 25 years in various capacities. He was a tall, lean man with graying hair and penetrating blue eyes that seemed to evaluate everything around him. His reputation for demanding excellence was matched by his fairness and genuine concern for the soldiers under his command. Colonel Petrov's opening address to the candidates was brief, but comprehensive. He explained that the next 2 weeks would test every aspect of their capabilities, with evaluations covering marksmanship, physical conditioning, fieldcraft, psychological resilience, and character assessment. Candidates who showed any weakness in critical areas would be immediately dismissed, regardless of their performance in other categories. The first day began with baseline testing in all major areas. Marksmanship evaluation took place at the facility's sophisticated rifle range, which featured moving targets, variable lighting conditions, and environmental challenges designed to replicate real-world shooting scenarios. Marcus's performance was exceptional, consistently hitting targets that many experienced soldiers struggled to engage effectively. Physical fitness testing followed a different format than the Academy's standard assessments. Instead of measuring maximum performance in specific exercises, the Royal Guard evaluation focused on sustained capability over extended periods. Candidates completed a 12-hour movement exercise carrying full equipment across mountainous terrain, followed immediately by precision shooting tests while exhausted and stressed. Marcus surprised himself by performing better than expected in the physical challenges. His months of specialized preparation had improved his endurance significantly, and his smaller size actually provided advantages in some situations. He moved efficiently across difficult terrain without wasting energy on unnecessary movements, and his naturally steady hands remained stable even when his body was fatigued. Fieldcraft instruction began on the second day, covering the essential skills that snipers needed for survival and effectiveness in hostile environments. Candidates learned advanced camouflage techniques, using natural materials and specialized equipment to become virtually invisible in various terrains. They practiced moving silently across different surfaces, remaining motionless for hours at a time, and constructing concealed observation positions. Master Sergeant Shun, the primary fieldcraft instructor, was a compact man with weathered features and movements so fluid they seemed almost feline. He had spent 15 years as a Royal Guard sniper, participating in dozens of missions throughout the kingdom and beyond. His standards were uncompromising, and his ability to detect the slightest mistakes in concealment or movement seemed almost supernatural. During fieldcraft exercises, candidates worked individually and in small teams to complete increasingly complex scenarios. They were required to move undetected across open ground while instructors actively searched for them using optical equipment and trained observers. Discovery meant immediate failure and elimination from the program. Marcus found the fieldcraft challenges both difficult and fascinating. His analytical mind helped him understand the principles behind effective concealment, while his naturally cautious temperament suited the patient, methodical approach required for success. He struggled with some physical aspects of the training, particularly movements that required significant upper body strength, but his overall performance was solid. Psychological evaluation was integrated throughout all training activities rather than conducted as separate sessions. Specially trained observers monitored candidates constantly, noting their reactions to stress, their decision-making processes under pressure, and their interactions with teammates and instructors. The Royal Guard needed individuals who could function effectively in high-stakes situations while maintaining emotional stability and sound judgment. One particularly challenging exercise required candidates to remain in concealed positions for 18 hours while observing a simulated enemy facility and reporting activities through coded radio transmissions. They had to maintain alertness and accuracy despite hunger, thirst, cold temperatures, and the natural human tendency to become restless during extended periods of inactivity. Marcus excelled at this type of challenge. His introverted nature and preference for solitary activities translated well to the isolation required for long-range observation missions. While other candidates struggled with boredom or discomfort, Marcus found the extended observation period almost meditative. His reports were detailed and accurate, noting patterns and anomalies that other observers missed. The marksmanship portion of the program became progressively more challenging as the days passed. Candidates engaged targets at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, compensating for wind, temperature, altitude, and other environmental factors that affected bullet trajectory. They shot from various positions, including some that were deliberately uncomfortable or unstable, while under time pressure and psychological stress. Advanced shooting scenarios included engaging multiple targets in sequence, hitting moving targets at extreme ranges, and making precision shots while wearing full protective equipment that limited visibility and mobility. The rifle systems used were the finest available, equipped with sophisticated optical sights and ballistic computers, but mastering their capabilities required extensive training and natural aptitude. Marcus's performance in advanced marksmanship continued to distinguish him from other candidates. His shots were consistently accurate across all scenarios, and his understanding of ballistics theory allowed him to make effective adjustments for changing conditions. Instructors noted his ability to remain calm under pressure and his methodical approach to complex shooting problems. However, Marcus also faced significant challenges in other areas of the program. Team-based exercises revealed his ongoing difficulties with leadership and interpersonal dynamics. While he contributed effectively as an individual performer, he struggled to assert authority or inspire confidence in teammates during group missions. His quiet nature and tendency towards self-doubt undermined his effectiveness in scenarios that required decisive leadership. Combat scenarios tested candidates' ability to survive and function in simulated battlefield conditions. These exercises involved live-fire training with blanks and non-lethal marking rounds, creating realistic stress and danger while maintaining reasonable safety margins. Candidates had to demonstrate proficiency in close-quarters combat, tactical movement, and rapid decision-making under fire. During one particularly intense scenario, Marcus found himself separated from his team and surrounded by simulated enemy forces. His marksmanship skills were irrelevant in close-quarters combat, and his physical limitations became apparent as he struggled to maneuver effectively in confined spaces. However, his ability to remain calm and think analytically helped him identify escape routes and defensive positions that other candidates missed. The exercise concluded with Marcus successfully evading capture and rejoining friendly forces, though his route required more time and caution than the aggressive, direct approaches favored by other candidates. His performance was deemed acceptable, but not outstanding, raising questions about his suitability for missions requiring rapid response or close-quarters engagement. As the selection program progressed, the number of candidates steadily decreased. Some were eliminated for failing specific performance standards, while others voluntarily withdrew when they realized they couldn't meet the program's demands. The competitive atmosphere intensified as remaining candidates understood that very few positions were available and that any significant mistake could end their chances. Marcus watched several impressive candidates depart the program, including some whose overall capabilities seemed superior to his own. Their departures reinforced his understanding that success in the Royal Guard required not just excellence in multiple areas, but also the specific combination of attributes needed for the sniper role. His unique strengths were valuable, but they had to be balanced against his obvious limitations. The final week of selection focused intensively on mission scenarios that replicated real-world Royal Guard operations. Candidates worked individually and in small teams to complete objectives that tested their integration of all skills learned during the program. success required demonstrating not just technical proficiency, but also sound judgment, reliability, and the ability to operate independently under extreme pressure. One critical exercise placed Marcus in a scenario where he had to provide overwatch protection for a simulated royal convoy traveling through hostile territory. His position was over 800 meters from the roadway, requiring him to engage potential threats at extreme range while avoiding detection by enemy counter-snipers searching for his location. The scenario lasted 14 hours, during which Marcus maintained constant vigilance while dealing with changing weather conditions, equipment malfunctions, and multiple false alarms. When genuine threats finally appeared, his responses were swift and accurate. His ability to distinguish between legitimate targets and innocent civilians demonstrated the judgment essential for Royal Guard operations. Colonel Petrov observed the final exercises personally, evaluating each remaining candidate's performance against the exacting standards required for Royal Guard service. His decisions would determine not just who graduated from the selection program, but also their specific assignments within the unit's various specialties and operational roles. As the selection program neared its conclusion, Marcus reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought him from struggling military academy cadet to serious candidate for the kingdom's most elite unit. Regardless of the final outcome, he had proven to himself and others that his unique combination of abilities had value in the right context. The transformation was not yet complete, but Marcus had discovered strengths he never knew he possessed and developed capabilities that extended far beyond simple marksmanship. Whether these would prove sufficient for acceptance into the Royal Guard remained to be determined, but his confidence in his potential for meaningful military service had grown immeasurably during the challenging 2 weeks of selection. The final day of Royal Guard selection arrived with an unexpected snowfall that transformed the mountain training facility into a winter wonderland. Fresh powder covered the rocky terrain, creating both beautiful scenery and additional challenges for the remaining candidates. Only 8 soldiers remained from the original group of 24, and each one understood that acceptance into the Royal Guard was no longer just a possibility, but a realistic outcome if they could maintain their performance standards through the concluding evaluations. Marcus woke before dawn in his Spartan barracks room, listening to the wind howling through the mountain passes and feeling the cold air seeping through the building's walls. His body ached from 2 weeks of intense physical activity, but his mind was clearer and more focused than it had ever been. The selection process had pushed him far beyond what he had believed were his limits, revealing reserves of strength and determination that surprised even him. The final exercise was announced during the morning briefing. Colonel Petrov explained that each candidate would undertake a solo mission lasting 24 hours, during which they would demonstrate their mastery of all skills learned during the selection process. The scenario involved infiltrating hostile territory, gathering intelligence on enemy movements, and potentially engaging high-value targets if the situation required intervention. Each candidate would operate completely independently, with no support or communication except for emergency situations. They would be provided with standard sniper equipment, survival gear, and communications devices, but success would depend entirely on their individual capabilities and judgment. The exercise was designed to simulate the real-world conditions that Royal Guard snipers faced during their most challenging missions. Marcus received his mission briefing in a secure room where maps, satellite photographs, and intelligence reports covered a large wooden table. His objective was to establish an observation post overlooking a valley where simulated enemy forces were conducting training exercises. He was required to report on their activities, assess their capabilities, and be prepared to engage specific high-priority targets if they appeared within his operational area. The target zone was located 12 kilometers from the base facility, requiring Marcus to travel cross-country through mountainous terrain while carrying 60 pounds of equipment. The route included steep climbs, exposed ridgelines, and areas where enemy patrols might detect his movement. Weather conditions were expected to deteriorate throughout the exercise, with continued snowfall and dropping temperatures that could affect both his comfort and his equipment's performance. Marcus studied the terrain carefully, identifying potential observation positions, approach routes, and escape paths. His analytical mind processed the tactical situation methodically, considering variables that included sight lines, wind patterns, concealment opportunities, and emergency contingencies. The planning phase consumed 2 hours, but Marcus understood that thorough preparation was essential for success in the field. Equipment selection required careful consideration of mission requirements balanced against weight constraints. Marcus chose a precision rifle system optimized for long-range accuracy, along with optical devices for observation and range finding. His pack contained survival gear, communications equipment, camouflage materials, food, water, and emergency medical supplies sufficient for extended operations. The trek to his operational area began in afternoon light that was already dimming due to heavy cloud cover. Marcus moved carefully across the snow-covered landscape, pausing frequently to check his navigation and observe his surroundings for signs of other candidates or exercise controllers who might be monitoring his progress. The fresh snow made movement more difficult, but also helped conceal his tracks from casual observation. Climbing became progressively more challenging as the terrain grew steeper and the snow deeper. Marcus's breathing came in visible puffs in the cold air, and his muscles worked steadily to maintain pace while carrying the heavy equipment load. His smaller stature actually provided advantages in some situations, allowing him to move efficiently through areas where larger candidates might struggle. As darkness approached, Marcus reached the ridgeline overlooking his target valley. The view was spectacular, with snow-covered peaks extending in all directions under a sky filled with heavy clouds. However, the tactical situation required complete focus on the valley below, where scattered lights indicated the presence of the simulated enemy force he was assigned to observe. Establishing his observation post required several hours of careful work in increasingly cold conditions. Marcus selected a position that provided excellent sight lines while offering natural concealment and protection from the weather. He constructed a hide using natural materials and specialized equipment, creating a space where he could remain undetected for extended periods while maintaining visual contact with his target area. The precision rifle required careful preparation in the cold conditions. Low temperatures affected both the mechanical components and the ballistics characteristics, requiring adjustments to his normal shooting techniques. Marcus tested his equipment thoroughly, confirming that all systems functioned properly despite the harsh environment. Throughout the night, Marcus maintained continuous observation of the valley while fighting fatigue, cold, and the natural human tendency to lose focus during long periods of inactivity. The enemy force conducted various training exercises that he documented carefully, noting patterns in their movement, equipment, and procedures. His reports were transmitted at regular intervals using coded radio communications that would not reveal his position. The physical demands of the extended observation period tested Marcus's endurance and mental resilience. Remaining motionless for hours while maintaining alertness required discipline that many soldiers never developed. Cold temperatures made concentration difficult, and the isolation created psychological pressure that could break down less prepared individuals. However, Marcus found that his introverted nature and preference for solitary activities translated well to the demands of long-range reconnaissance. While other candidates might have struggled with loneliness or boredom, he remained focused on his mission objectives and alert to changes in the tactical situation below. Dawn brought new challenges as improved visibility made concealment more critical while also providing better observation opportunities. Marcus adjusted his hide to account for changing light conditions and continued his surveillance of enemy activities. The snow had stopped falling, but temperatures remained well below freezing, creating icicles on his equipment and making fine motor control increasingly difficult. Mid-morning brought the critical phase of his mission when a high-value target appeared in the valley. According to his briefing, this individual represented a senior enemy commander whose elimination could significantly impact hostile operations. The target was located at extreme range, over 900 meters from Marcus's position, requiring a precision shot under challenging environmental conditions. Marcus studied the tactical situation carefully before making his decision to engage. Wind conditions were moderate but variable, requiring careful calculation of their effects on bullet trajectory. The target's position offered only brief exposure opportunities as he moved between cover locations. Temperature and altitude affected ballistics in ways that Marcus had to compensate for based on his training and experience. Preparing for the shot required complete focus and methodical execution of techniques learned during months of training. Marcus controlled his breathing, steadied his rifle, and calculated all environmental factors affecting accuracy. The crosshairs aligned precisely with his target as he made final adjustments for wind and range. The shot was perfect. Even at the extreme distance, Marcus could observe the impact exactly where intended, confirming the elimination of his assigned target. The sound of the rifle shot echoed across the valley, immediately alerting enemy forces to the presence of a sniper in their area. Marcus's position was now compromised, requiring immediate action to avoid detection and capture. Extraction from his observation post demanded speed balanced against stealth. Enemy patrols would soon be searching for his location, using the sound of his gunshot to estimate his general position. Marcus quickly disassembled his equipment and began moving away from his shooting position, following a carefully planned escape route that took advantage of terrain features and natural concealment. The withdrawal phase tested different skills than the approach and observation periods. Instead of methodical movement and patient stalking, Marcus now had to cover ground quickly while avoiding detection by searchers who knew approximately where to look for him. The snow that had provided concealment during his approach now created tracks that enemy forces could follow if they found his trail. Marcus used every technique he had learned during fieldcraft training to confuse potential pursuers. He varied his route, used hard surfaces when possible to avoid leaving tracks, and employed deception methods to mislead searchers about his direction of travel. His movement was efficient but cautious, recognizing that capture during the extraction phase would negate his success during the earlier portions of the mission. Several hours of careful movement brought Marcus to his designated extraction point, where exercise controllers were waiting to debrief him and evaluate his performance. The relief of completing the mission successfully was overwhelming, but Marcus maintained his professional composure while reporting his activities and turning in his equipment. Colonel Petrov conducted the debriefing personally, asking detailed questions about Marcus's decision-making processes, technical procedures, and observations during the mission. The colonel's questions revealed that exercise controllers had monitored most of Marcus's activities using advanced surveillance techniques, providing them with comprehensive information about his performance. The feedback was largely positive. Marcus's approach to the operational area had been tactically sound and effectively concealed. His observation post-construction demonstrated good fieldcraft and provided excellent visibility while maintaining security. His target engagement was technically excellent, showing mastery of long-range shooting under difficult conditions. However, Colonel Petrov also noted areas where Marcus's performance could be improved. His extraction movement, while ultimately successful, had been more cautious than necessary and consumed more time than optimal. Some of his equipment choices reflected inexperience with extended field operations. His radio communications, though accurate, could have been more concise and efficient. The evaluation concluded with Colonel Petrov's assessment that Marcus had demonstrated the essential qualities needed for Royal Guard sniper service, despite being among the youngest and least experienced candidates in the selection program. His technical skills were exceptional, his judgment sound, and his character suitable for the demanding responsibilities of elite military service. After the debriefing, Marcus rejoined the other remaining candidates for the final formation of the selection program. 7 soldiers had successfully completed all requirements and would be offered positions in various Royal Guard specialties. Their success represented achievement of the highest standards in military service and recognition of their exceptional capabilities. The graduation ceremony was brief but meaningful. Colonel Petrov presented each new Royal Guard member with the unit's distinctive insignia and explained their upcoming assignments. Marcus would begin advanced sniper training immediately, followed by integration into one of the Guard's operational teams responsible for protecting senior government officials and conducting specialized missions throughout the kingdom. The transformation from struggling military academy cadet to Royal Guard sniper was nearly complete, but Marcus understood that his real challenges were just beginning. Advanced training would be even more demanding than the selection process, and operational missions would test his abilities in ways that no training exercise could fully replicate. However, the young man who had once been dismissed as unsuitable for military service now wore the uniform of the kingdom's most elite unit. His journey had revealed strengths he never knew he possessed and developed capabilities that extended far beyond simple marksmanship. The quiet, analytical approach that had once seemed like weakness in traditional military environments proved to be ideally suited for the specialized demands of precision shooting and independent operations. As Marcus packed his equipment and prepared to leave the mountain training facility, he reflected on the remarkable series of events that had brought him to this point. The professors, instructors, and commanders who had supported his development had seen potential that he had been unable to recognize in himself. Their faith in his abilities had provided the encouragement necessary for him to persist through difficulties and achieve success in an unlikely career path. The return journey to the Royal Guard headquarters would mark the beginning of a new chapter in Marcus's military career. He would soon be working alongside the most experienced and skilled soldiers in the kingdom, protecting the royal family and serving the nation's most critical security interests. The responsibility was enormous, but his confidence in his ability to meet these challenges had grown tremendously during the selection process. Marcus's story had become one of transformation and achievement against unlikely odds. The physical limitations and social awkwardness that had seemed like insurmountable obstacles during his early military training had been overcome through dedication, specialized training, and the discovery of natural talents that were perfectly suited for his new role. The young sniper who emerged from Royal Guard selection was a far different person from the uncertain cadet who had struggled through basic military training just months before. His journey from the bottom of his academy class to membership in the kingdom's most elite unit demonstrated that success in military service could take many different forms, and that individual strengths, when properly developed and applied, could overcome significant apparent weaknesses. 6 months after completing Royal Guard selection, Marcus Chun had evolved into someone nearly unrecognizable from the struggling cadet who once doubted his place in military service. His advanced sniper training had been completed with distinction, and he now served as a fully qualified member of Team 7, one of the Royal Guard's most elite protective units. His transformation was evident not just in his increased confidence and competence, but in the respect he had earned from colleagues who represented the finest soldiers in the kingdom. The Royal Guard headquarters was located in the capital city's government district, housed within a fortress-like building that combined medieval stonework with modern security technology. The facility's exterior appeared traditional and understated, but its interior contained the most sophisticated equipment and training facilities available anywhere in the kingdom. Team 7's operational center occupied the building's top floor, providing panoramic views of the city while maintaining complete security and privacy. Marcus's daily routine now began before dawn, with physical conditioning tailored specifically for operational requirements. His fitness program focused on functional strength, endurance, and flexibility rather than maximum performance in traditional exercises. The training had transformed his body composition and capabilities, though he remained smaller than most of his teammates. His improved physical condition supported the demanding requirements of long-range shooting and extended field operations. Advanced equipment training consumed significant portions of each day. Royal Guard snipers used the most sophisticated rifle systems available, equipped with computer-assisted ballistics calculators, advanced optical sights, and communication systems that integrated seamlessly with command and control networks. Mastering this technology required constant study and practice as equipment capabilities continued to evolve with advancing technology. Marcus's analytical mind proved exceptionally well-suited for understanding complex technical systems. He quickly became his team's specialist in ballistics computation and equipment troubleshooting. His ability to diagnose and resolve technical problems under field conditions made him invaluable during operations where equipment failure could have catastrophic consequences. Team 7 consisted of 6 highly specialized soldiers, each bringing unique skills that contributed to the unit's overall effectiveness. The team leader was Major Sarah Reynolds, a veteran officer with 15 years of Royal Guard service and combat experience in multiple theaters. Her leadership style emphasized careful planning, thorough preparation, and adaptive execution that accounted for the unpredictable nature of protection missions. Sergeant First Class Michael Torres served as the team's communications specialist and backup sniper. His extensive experience in intelligence gathering and electronic surveillance provided critical support for target identification and threat assessment. Master Sergeant Jennifer Walsh was a former Special Operations medic whose tactical medical skills had saved lives during numerous high-risk missions throughout her career. The team scout was Corporal David Kim, whose small stature and exceptional stealth capabilities made him ideal for reconnaissance and infiltration missions. Technical Sergeant Robert Johnson provided explosive ordnance disposal expertise along with demolitions capabilities for specialized operations. Together, these soldiers formed a cohesive unit capable of handling the most complex and dangerous assignments. Marcus's integration into this experienced team had been gradual but successful. Initially, his teammates were skeptical about his lack of operational experience and his unconventional path to Royal Guard service. However, his technical competence, reliability, and calm demeanor under pressure had gradually earned their respect and trust. His shooting ability was undeniably exceptional, but more importantly, he had proven himself capable of making sound tactical decisions and functioning effectively as part of a team. The team's first major operation with Marcus came during the annual trade summit, when dozens of foreign dignitaries gathered in the capital to negotiate commercial agreements. The event presented enormous security challenges, with threats ranging from terrorist attacks to assassination attempts by hostile foreign intelligence services. Team 7 was responsible for providing overwatch protection for the most sensitive diplomatic meetings. Marcus's position during the summit was atop a building overlooking the conference center, 800 meters from the main entrance where dignitaries would arrive and depart. His hide was carefully constructed to provide excellent visibility while remaining completely concealed from observation. Advanced optical equipment allowed him to identify individuals and assess potential threats at extreme ranges. The 3-day operation tested every aspect of Marcus's training and capabilities. He maintained constant vigilance while dealing with changing weather conditions, equipment malfunctions, and multiple false alarms. His communications with the team's command post were frequent and detailed, providing real-time intelligence about activities in his observation area. On the second day of the summit, Marcus identified a genuine threat that had escaped detection by other security elements. Through his scope, he observed an individual on a distant rooftop who appeared to be conducting surveillance of the conference center while carrying what looked like a long-range rifle case. The individual's behavior patterns and equipment suggested hostile intent rather than legitimate security or media activities. Marcus's report triggered an immediate response from multiple security teams, but the suspect's position was too distant and too well concealed for conventional law enforcement to approach safely. The tactical situation required precision engagement at extreme range under time pressure, exactly the type of scenario that Royal Guard snipers train for throughout their careers. The shot was one of the most challenging Marcus had ever attempted. The target was over 1,000 meters away, partially concealed behind rooftop equipment, and positioned at a significantly different altitude than Marcus's shooting position. Wind conditions were variable due to the urban environment, creating complex air currents that affected bullet trajectory in unpredictable ways. Marcus took several minutes to analyze the tactical situation and calculate all factors affecting the shot. His ballistics computer provided initial data, but his experience and intuition were essential for making final adjustments. The margin for error was essentially zero, as a missed shot could alert the target to the security response and potentially trigger whatever attack was being planned. The rifle felt perfectly balanced in Marcus's hands as he made final preparations for the shot. His breathing was controlled, his heartbeat steady, and his mind completely focused on the technical execution required for success. The crosshairs aligned precisely with his target as he made microscopic adjustments for wind and distance. The shot was flawless. Even at the extreme range, Marcus could observe the impact exactly where intended, neutralizing the threat before any attack could be launched. The precision and timing of his engagement prevented what intelligence analysis later confirmed would have been an assassination attempt against one of the summit's most important participants. The successful intervention earned Marcus recognition throughout the Royal Guard and broader security community. His ability to identify, analyze, and neutralize a sophisticated threat had prevented a major international incident and potentially saved multiple lives. The operation demonstrated that his development from struggling cadet to elite sniper was complete and that his value to the kingdom's security was substantial. However, Marcus understood that his success during the trade summit was just one mission in what would likely be a long career filled with similar challenges. Each operation presented unique difficulties and required different combinations of skills and capabilities. Maintaining the high-performance standards expected of Royal Guard members would require continued dedication to training and professional development. Following the summit operation, Marcus received additional specialized training in urban sniper tactics and advanced threat assessment. His role within Team 7 expanded to include training responsibilities for new Royal Guard candidates, sharing his analytical approach and technical expertise with the next generation of elite soldiers. The teaching assignments proved to be among the most rewarding aspects of Marcus's military service. Working with candidates who faced similar challenges to those he had overcome allowed him to provide encouragement and guidance that he wished he had received during his own difficult early training. His unconventional background and proven success made him an effective mentor for soldiers whose strengths lay outside traditional military expectations. One particular candidate, Lieutenant Rachel Foster, reminded Marcus strongly of his own early struggles. She was highly intelligent and academically gifted, but struggled with physical training and social integration within traditional military culture. Marcus provided specialized coaching that helped her develop confidence and technical skills while adapting training methods to account for individual strengths and limitations. Lieutenant Foster's eventual success in Royal Guard selection validated Marcus's approach to mentoring and demonstrated the value of recognizing diverse paths to military excellence. Her achievement was particularly meaningful to Marcus, as it confirmed that his own success was not unique, but rather an example of what could be accomplished when individual talents were properly identified and developed. Marcus's reputation within the Royal Guard continued to grow as he participated in increasingly complex and sensitive operations. His analytical capabilities made him valuable for mission planning and threat assessment, while his shooting skills provided critical operational capabilities during high-stakes missions. His quiet professionalism and reliability earned respect from colleagues and superiors who had initially questioned his unconventional background. The transformation from struggling military academy cadet to respected Royal Guard sniper was now complete. Marcus had found his true calling within the kingdom's most elite military unit, where his unique combination of analytical intelligence, technical precision, and calm determination were not just appreciated, but essential for mission success. Reflecting on his journey during quiet moments between operations, Marcus often marveled at the series of events that had brought him to his current position. The professors, instructors, and commanders who had recognized his potential and provided opportunities for development had fundamentally changed the trajectory of his life. Their faith in his abilities had enabled him to overcome significant obstacles and achieve success that once seemed impossible. The respect he now enjoyed from colleagues and the meaningful contribution he made to national security provided deep satisfaction that compensated for all the difficulties and doubts of his early military training. His story had become an inspiration for other soldiers facing similar challenges, demonstrating that military excellence could take many different forms and that individual strengths, when properly developed, could overcome apparent weaknesses. Marcus Chin's evolution from overlooked cadet to elite Royal Guard sniper proved that the most unlikely candidates sometimes possessed the greatest potential for specialized excellence. His success challenged conventional assumptions about military leadership and combat effectiveness, while highlighting the importance of recognizing and developing diverse talents within military organizations. The young man who had once sat alone in academy dining halls, struggling with basic physical requirements and doubting his place in military service, now operated at the highest levels of his profession. His precision rifle had become an instrument of protection for the kingdom's most important leaders, and his analytical mind contributed to security decisions that affected the safety of millions of citizens. Most importantly, Marcus had discovered that his true strength lay not in trying to become someone he wasn't, but in fully developing the unique capabilities he possessed. His journey from the margins of military culture to its very center demonstrated that excellence could emerge from unexpected places and that the military's greatest assets sometimes came in forms that defied traditional expectations. The story of Marcus Chun would be remembered within Royal Guard history as an example of transformation, perseverance, and the discovery of hidden talents. His success proved that when individual strengths were properly identified and developed, even the most unlikely candidates could achieve extraordinary results and make invaluable contributions to their nation's security and defense.